Hi, I'm Marc Stoudemire. Welcome back to the second season of Get to the Joke. I'm excited about our guest today, Pat House, who is a Philadelphia mainstay in the comedy scene. He's a nationally touring headliner who's opened for comics like Tom Stegura, Dan Cummins, and Sebastian Maniscalo, and he has recorded 3 incredible albums, most recently I'm Here, which you can get anywhere you can download albums. And he has one of my favorite podcasts called I'll Guess I'll Do It, with some crazy, awesome guests like Ted Alexandro. He had Dan Cummins on there as well, and Greg Fitzsimmons. All incredible interviews that you have to check out. I really enjoyed my time sitting and talking with Pat about comedy, his wheelhouse. And please go ahead and subscribe to this channel and enjoy this interview with Pat House. All right, let's get to the joke.
Recently, I haven't done it in a very long time, and I see it totally different now. I went bowling 2 weeks ago with a bunch of friends. I loved bowling 20 years ago, and I had fun when I went, but I see it totally differently now. I'm not a germaphobe by any means, but there is nothing more disgusting on the planet than a bowling alley. There have got to be less germs in orgies than there are in a bowling alley. First of all, you're wearing rented shoes, walking around, sticking your fingers in shit. There is nothing more gross on this planet than trying to find the right bowling ball. I stuck my fingers in a bowling ball 2 weeks ago. It felt like a lady. I don't want to speak ill of anybody and their profession, but nobody attractive works in a bowling alley. They're hideous people. They are indoor carnies. The same person who sprays your shoes is the same person who's making the chili fries, who'll also go get your gutter ball. Place, I know. And you're eating those cheese fries, licking your fingers, bowling, having more cheese fries, touching the keypad. Fucking disgusting. I'm ruining bowling for everybody in this room tonight. But I did take something home with me that day. On the screen where the scores are, they had bowling facts. Facts about the history of bowling. And let me tell you, riveting. One thing said the automatic ball return was invented in the US in 1946. Yep. 1 year after World War II ended. Which means while millions of men and American women were fighting for our freedom here and in Europe, some dipshit here is like, yeah, but the fucking ball won't come back to me. I mean, everybody I grew up with is dead, but I don't want to get up every single time I roll the goddamn ball.
Hey.
Hello there.
How you doing, man?
Good.
Good to see you. Are you still just doing your day job? Is that how you're
Yeah, I never got rid of the day job. I actually I had to took a weird angle. I was delivering a lot of food, but it was fun, man. It was actually had a lot of fun.
That's good. That's good, man.
I was doing takeout and delivery. Cool. Well, How are you?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for doing this. This is a big deal. Getting you is a big deal.
Thank you. I appreciate that. What are you drinking there?
Coffee.
Actual coffee.
Actual coffee. Yeah, what about you?
I got a Jameson and ginger over here.
Of course. There you go, man. That looks good. That looks real good.
It is.
I was gonna say, I always considered you a big deal in Philly, but what really caught my attention with you was I was listening to Joey Diaz's podcast, not the one he has right now. The God, I can't remember.
The Church of What's Happening.
Church of What's Happening Now. And whoever I can't remember who his co-host or whoever the assistant was. They were talking about the guy would not stay open. Like the guy was doing shows like 2 hours away from his house, but was afraid to ask comics to like crash with them, and he kept like going back and forth. And Joey was getting a hard time. He's like, dude, when you're on the road, you're gonna need to rely on these guys. Like when you're in this city, you're gonna need to talk to this guy. Like when you're in Philly, you'll be crashing on Pat House's couch. I'm like, did you just say Pat House's couch? I was like, holy shit, Joey Diaz just said Pat House's couch on his podcast.
He's a good dude, man. I haven't seen him in a couple years, but for a stretch there, I was opening for him a lot, and he's a good dude, man. He is a good dude.
Yeah, he seems like a guy who just like he's really passionate about like bringing like developing comics like that he can like kind of.
Oh yeah, he cares.
Yeah,
he cares.
So, but cool, man. So this is like real. I have like a plan here. I've done my research on you. I've read several articles and interviews and listened to both your albums again and again just to get everything down here.
You did your research.
So I kind of want to start out. I like to. So your podcast, I guess I'll do it. I listen to it religiously. I love your podcast is a lot different, and I like it because you have comics that I consider like comics, like Amy Miller and Mark Norman and Ted Alexandro. Like I know like the whole premise is to like how did they get into it and like what was their first set like. So kind of like bouncing kind of off your original concept here, and I've listened to yours, so I know what you say on yours as far as what your like kind of your roots were, how you got into it, being in Kansas, and then I see articles about being in Temple and going to see a show with Mitch Hedberg. But what really caught my attention was there was a point that stood out, and you said that at the age of 4, you observed your dad watching stand-up and laughing. And that's kind of the first indication that hits you. So can you tell me kind of this relationship with your father? It was interesting that you had mentioned that it was your father that got your attention. It wasn't like your mom or your stepdad. It was really your dad. What's the relationship with your father? Like, have you been doing was he like a kind of repressed comedian? You've done it to kind of get his approval or kind of get a closer bond to him? And what's he think of your career as a full-time comic now?
First of all, my dad is extremely, very supportive. He comes to shows all the time, him and his wife.
Awesome.
My dad loves other stand-up. Like, my dad loves Jim Norton and Tom Rhodes, Dave Attell. Like, my dad likes stand-up, and I guess he's always liked it because I remember, like I said, when I was really young, he was watching Comic Relief on HBO, and he was laughing, and I looked at the TV, and I couldn't tell you who these people are. Like, I know comics that have done Comic Relief, but as a 4-year-old, I don't know who I saw on TV. Yeah. I saw a person, or people rather, on stage alone, holding a microphone, and they were making this crowd laugh. And I was so young, but I remember just being drawn to that and finding that fascinating. It was because I think when you're young and impressionable, anything can take a hold of you. It could have been somebody playing a guitar or somebody juggling or somebody playing baseball. But I just saw this comedians on Comic Relief, and that is just what stuck with me. Just that's what my nature or where my brain was just like, we're going there. Yeah. I don't know what this is, but I know I like it. I'm watching this person make a crowd laugh. My dad's laughing. I laugh because he's laughing. It's a chain reaction. And that just stuck with me as just something that's fascinating and so cool. I didn't know it was a job. I didn't know. I'm a kid. I'm not even fucking 6 years old. Yeah. But that is just burned in my brain as a memory of like, I was just drawn to it. And then like, I guess I didn't really think much of stand-up when I was 7, 8, 9 years old or anything. But when I got into high school, and I'm 13, 14, 15, I got really into stand-up. And even at that time, I still had that memory of here.
Yeah, so
it wasn't to impress anybody, but I mean, it was just, I got thrown into that Like, I just saw it and was amazed.
Yeah, and then so you fast forward many years later. Now you're in Kansas with your mom and her family, and you're watching
My grandma.
Your grandma. I'm sorry, your grandmother. So another instance where you're with your family. I mean, not you were by yourself when you saw it, but with your family, and you're watching Stephen Wright on late night, and now and that's kind of like where like I'm doing this. So I guess like where like. What was it that, like, because you could have been like, well, I want to maybe be a writer, or maybe I just want to be, like, a guy who acts. Like, what is it about stand-up that you are just, that is what I want to do, and forget the rest?
I don't know I wanted to do stand-up when I saw Stephen Wright. I just loved his set, and it was the first stand-up set I understood.
Yeah.
But I'm an only child, and from my mom and dad. I grew up an only child. So I think I was drawn to the aloneness of it. Like, it's one person doing their job there, if that makes sense. Like, I did a lot of stuff alone when I was a kid and as an adult, and I think I liked the fact that it was just one person doing their thing.
So that's interesting. So you did a lot of stuff alone. Did you not have a lot of friends then, like, growing up, or?
No, I did, but I was just an only child. Like, I didn't have siblings to play with before bed or first thing in the morning, or have another person in the house my age. Like, I matured pretty young, and I was just, I had friends. I played guitar. I played a couple sports. I had friends, but I mean, once the night was over, like, I enjoyed my alone time because I grew up alone, and like I said, there was nobody else, male or female, in the house my age. So it was just parents and me.
Interesting. So I understand what you mean by, like, stand-up is alone, but, like, part of the reason that people are, like, sucked into that world is they're kind of now with people like them. They're a bunch of even something you had mentioned where it was like the hanging out's important. Where did I have that here? It was like hanging out this is what you say. Hanging out at shows also helps. It shows support, and people notice that. So there's also this. You can't just be alone. You can't just come do your set and leave.
No, but I mean.
So it's like what attracts you then to, like, this lifestyle of being alone one moment, but then, like, the kind of like needing other people to kind of massage this way through this kind of weird career?
Because we're all in the same boat. I mean, talking comedy with comics is my favorite thing on the planet, and we could talk this for hours and hours on end. But at the same time, like, when, like, the show's over, if I'm on, like, the road, you hang out with the local comics and you do the show, going back to the hotel room alone for your own, like, quiet time is kind of the best still. Like, you're unwinding with nobody in sight. No phone calls, no other person. It's Netflix, your hotel room, your hotel bed, your air conditioning on the lowest possible setting, and then it's bedtime. And then like, so I'm so used to traveling alone too that, like, I've explored cities for days on end by myself. Like,
and is this something that, like, people have to get to know you? I mean, I know you have a girlfriend now, but is this something, like, people get used to with, like, I need my alone time, and, like, we'll do this, but I also need, like, 50%. We'll do something 50%.
God, of course.
Okay.
She's very independent too, so we're very aware of doing our own thing.
Okay.
Like,
do you do stand-up mostly because your forte is just being funny and being relatable and being kind of that everyman where people can relate to and find funny, or is there this attention part of it? Is that kind of, I mean, is that why you're not a writer more so than you're actually getting on stage? Is how important is that attention, that people know that you wrote those jokes and can laugh with you about them?
I think every comic wants attention.
Yeah.
I mean, whether you're an introvert or not, we all want attention. But I also just love stand-up. Like, I love watching it. I love watching all sorts of comics. And I love taking an idea and making it relatable to people. Like, it's the most. It's not even that, it's just how my brain works, too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't sit there and intend to write something funny, like something happens, and I process it mostly through anger or annoyance first, and then a few minutes later, it hits me that that's funny.
Yeah.
And that's when the fun part kicks in. How do I make what just happened to me funny?
Okay.
To the general public.
Yeah, and I get your delivery is very unique in that way. I can tell behind most of your bits there was, like, an anger or something. Like, I can see.
Yeah, most of them start out that way. Not always anger, but like annoyance or irritation.
Yeah. Now, so tell me, so I listened to a thing with Jerry Seinfeld, and he talked. They had the person interviewing him was asking, it's like, well, you're this multi-millionaire, you have, like, how do you still find material that's relatable to a crowd of people that can only afford maybe a $50 ticket? And he goes, it's the anger. He's like, I always hold on to that. It's that bitterness I hold on to. In your case, why are you so angry, annoyed so quickly, and impatient maybe with some situations? And
because of other people. It's not really, it's other people.
But you're in the people business, both in your day job and night job.
True. I mean, we all have our flaws and whatnot, but I mean, whether I'm at like a store and I see somebody give the cashier a hard time, or I see the cashier being rude to a customer, I'm like zeroed in on that.
Yeah.
And then I just have to, I'm like, come on, like, what are you doing? Like, come on, there's a line, you're wasting time, you don't need to be rude.
Yeah. So
it's just naturally that how my, the things I'm like, my mind is attracted to or zeroes in on.
Now, are you someone, if you see a situation, you said someone's being rude to somebody, are you a guy that steps in to de-escalate? Oh, okay.
No way. I just sit back and get angrier.
So, awesome. So you start doing stand-up in Temple, and I mean, pretty young. I mean, I think like at 19, you might be one of the younger, comics that started out in this city, kind of thing. What do I don't know, like, what the financial situation with you and your folks in college was, but if they were like, how did you broach a subject where it was telling your folks that I want to do a comic full time, but still graduate Temple with a bachelor's degree?
Well, I didn't tell them for a couple months. My parents have always been very supportive my whole entire life, so it wasn't a big deal. It was just, I guess, my own hump to get over by just saying I'm going to do stand-up, and both of them just being like, well, that's strange. It was more of like, there was no fear, and they're very supportive. They've been supportive since day one, and they still are right now. Mm-hmm. But it was just a matter of laying some news out there that was just going to sound a little weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, was this a surprise? You said it sounded like they were like, this is strange, but it sounds like you were constantly trying to watch as much stand-up comedy up to that point in your life as you could. I mean, did it still catch them off guard?
I don't know if they knew that. I don't know. I mean, I liked stand-up. I don't know if, I was a teenager doing my own thing. I don't know if they knew how much Comedy Central I was watching or how many, like, comedy albums I bought off Amazon or eBay. Like, I don't even know if they knew, to be honest with you. Okay. Like, I loved stand-up, but I didn't really make it known or talk about it. Which I guess when I was that young, it was just something I enjoyed for myself.
Okay, I'll ask you this question, and then I'll leave your childhood alone. Was there ever a time where you put yourself out there and were embarrassed or ashamed that you had done that, and then kind of recoiled back into, like, oh, I went too far outside of my shell, I need to get back in here, kind of thing?
I played baseball for a couple years, and I'm a baseball fan. I enjoy watching it. I enjoy playing it for fun, but I was in a baseball league where, my parents paid money for the league. They had to pay for the uniform and the gloves and all this stuff, and I was bad. So, like, I would be in the batter's box knowing I was going to strike out, and I was embarrassed. I would pray the ball wouldn't get hit to me, so I think that would probably be the best answer to that question, because it's like, I thought my mom wanted me to keep playing, so I did, but deep down, my heart wasn't in it, and I wasn't good, so I was putting myself out there knowing I was pretty much walking into embarrassment.
Okay. All right. You're probably the guy in Philly that opens for the most, like, household name comic. I mean, obviously Sebastian Maniscalo and Cummins and Tom Stegura, and anyone that comes through Helium pretty much is a big name. You're usually on the bill there. How did you get into that foray of being that guy that these massive national headliners, either when they're coming to Philly or even not even in Philly, somewhere else, wants you to come open for them? Like, how did that evolve? Yeah.
The fact, like, with the three names you said, Sebastian, Tom Stegura, and Dan Cummins, all of my opening for them came from opening for them at a comedy club and then just hitting it off. Yeah. Just as simple as, like, it was a random booking. I'm the middle act, they're headlining. We hit it off, we bullshit, we have a couple drinks after the show throughout the week, and we just kind of get it done. And then they've been like, hey, man, if you're traveling or if you're free, you can tag along a couple dates with me. And that's happened with all three of those.
Nice.
Like I said, it was really just as simple as that. Just not being a dick and being funny and, getting along with the headliner. They were, in all three of those instances, they were just like, hey, man,
come to the
or, it's going both ways. I said, like, hey, if you ever need anybody, and sometimes they're like, oh, yeah, give me your info. I can use you here and here. But Sebastian asked me to do a couple gigs with him. So was just from opening at a club before they were famous and just networking and shooting the shit in the green room.
So now, like, I'm trying. If you can think back to maybe your first interaction with Sebastian or Tom or whoever you want to pick here, I'm thinking here's Pat House, who enjoys being alone. He gets off stage, murders the crowd. You just want to get back to that hotel room, like you said. There's nothing better than just
Well,
kind of debriefing.
I would do that after the comedy club hangout.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what is it like approaching someone like Sebastian or Tom for the first time? Like, I mean, they might give you like, hey, you did good out there or something like that. What's that? How do you go get up, maybe like the balls or whatever, to come up to one of these guys and kind of get that conversation and that network started?
Well, I met Sebastian at the Philly Helium, and I met Tom Stegura at the Portland, Oregon Helium, and neither one were famous yet.
Okay.
So we're just two comics on the same show.
Okay.
Like, it would be the same thing as like me and you doing a show. Like they were headlining, but Tom Stegura didn't even have his first Netflix special yet. So we're just random comics booked on the same show.
Okay.
That's really all it is. We're shooting the shit. And, at the end of the week, I would usually say, like, hey, man, I had a lot of fun with you this weekend. If you ever need somebody or, if you're able to bring a feature somewhere, I'd love to tag along with you. And then Tom Stegura did. He brought me to Philly when he came back. And then in Philly, we're sitting in the green room. And then he offered me Phoenix and Kansas City. And I did those with him. And then around the same time, I'm opening for Sebastian in Philly at Helium, and he's years away from being famous at this point.
Yeah.
He's years away. And then he asked me if I would do Cleveland and New Jersey with him, just because he liked my stuff. We hit it off. A little bit of small talk, but not too much.
Yeah.
And then he said, hey, I'm going to Cleveland and New Jersey if you want to tag along. And it was as simple, dude, it's just as simple as that.
So you have to be a good hang, though. You can't just be in this green room, keeping to yourself, not conversing with these guys. You have to be somewhat.
Well, with Sebastian, Sebastian's very quiet and keeps to himself.
Okay, so how do you get a conversation with him started then, if he's like kind of closed off to outside people?
Flat out, we're sitting in the green room at Saturday's show.
Yeah.
And he flat out looks at me and asks me, do you travel for comedy? I said, a little bit. I said, I do. I named a handful of clubs, and he goes, do you want to do Cleveland and this club in Jersey with me? And I said, sure. And dude, that's 100% how it went down. But Sebastian was very quiet and kept to himself. And I read his body language.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing. So I reciprocated and kept to myself. And that could have been it for all I know. Like, okay, this guy's quiet. He's funny. I trust him with my fans. I could use him. That's how I think that went.
Yeah, but then after he's done, then do you approach him then, like he's done with his set, the nights he did well, the night's over? Do you then strike up this conversation with him then and be like, okay, I'm not saying like you're using him for future bookings, but he's a nice person. He's a nice person to have in your pocket if they kind of build upon your career here a little bit. So like, do you approach him after he's done then and try to get maybe a little bit more of an in with him than before the show happened?
When the week is over,
okay.
Like after the Saturday shows is when I would try to lay some networking foundation.
Okay.
But I didn't want to do that like Wednesday or Thursday. As the Saturday shows start to wind down, it's like, hey man, I had a fun week. If you're back in town again, I'd love to open for you or whatever. So
that's awesome.
But I would always save that towards the end of the week, the Saturday or Sunday shows.
Yeah, I mean, and because of this, you have performed with these guys in theaters, and like you're opening for them, in these huge, what would you say would be the biggest place that you performed at, either name-wise or people-wise, whichever you consider bigger?
I opened for Sebastian at Mohegan's. Was it Mohegan Sun? We did a huge casino in Connecticut, was it Mohegan Sun? Shit, I have to look on it's going to bother me until I get it. But we had 5 shows, and there were 4,500 people at each.
Oh, wow.
And then that was Foxwoods.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
In Connecticut.
Yeah. Yep.
And then, so yeah, we had 5 shows, 4,500 people each. And then the last big show I did was 2 years ago. I opened for Stegura at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida. And there was about 4,000 at that one.
Just a quick plug and we'll get right back to the show. Have you checked out my website, marcstod.com? It gives you a whole wealth of information on how to see me live at shows. You can catch past Get to the Joke episodes and bonus content, and you can also check out some stand-up videos for myself. Please check out my website. Again, that's marcstod.com, marcstaud.com. Come see me live. Also, please, once again, subscribe to this channel, like our videos, leave a comment, I'll get back to you. Now let's get back to the joke. Alright, so I want to get now into kind of the meat of what this is, which is just teasing out the habits, the different best practices that comics do to shape their act, shape some of these jokes that they do. So I want to kind of get into your writing routine. I have a few kind of like one-off questions maybe with joke process or whatever that might seep in through this or whatever, but I guess my first question is, how often a day or throughout the week are you spending on writing jokes, thinking of material, anything stand-up comedy related? Do you have a set schedule, or is it just, it comes and goes depending on how you feel that day?
Comes and goes. I mean, especially with 2020 being the year that it was. Yeah. Like when the shutdowns began, I think I was going through like a notebook every 2 weeks. I was writing like a fiend because I didn't know, I wasn't working as much. There were no shows, so I was just writing. And then once it became known that things weren't going to open up right away, I kind of got pretty bummed and then stopped writing for a month or two. Okay. So, but last year was a whole separate beast in itself. So. Yeah. I'm talking about, like, let's say 2020 is an anomaly. What would you say, like, because you have 2 albums, and rumor has it 3 albums worth of material coming out. 3 will be out this spring. That's awesome. I was gonna ask about that because I kind of heard through the grapevine about the 3rd album, but I can only divulge so much at the moment. But so you have even for an album that's an hour, and let's say I think maybe like you had maybe 18 jokes in that album. There's maybe 100 or 200 jokes that up into that album that came and went. So like before the pandemic and everything, did you dedicate time to sit down and focus on writing, or just in between breaks of work, or just like, hey, something hit me, I just want to like spend it out? Yeah. Whenever something hit me, I mean, some days are better than others. Some days I wouldn't even touch my notebook. Other days I'd be in it for 4 hours. It was mainly just whenever something annoying happens or something I find it could be something, I would jot it down and then go back to it later when I had time. Sometimes I would be writing 1 or 2 things a day. And other times I wouldn't touch my notebook for a week and a half, and then I'm here working on 12 ideas. So there's really no rhyme or reason. I think a lot of comics, not all, but I think a lot are kind of lazy. And I fall into that to a certain extent because I don't always feel like writing. So it's more or less when the mood strikes, But I mean, you do have a wide array of material. I mean, like you can't say Pat's like a dad comic or Pat's like a blue collar comic, because you talk pretty much about everything. I mean, you talk about bowling one minute, then being in Ireland, and then being on the road, and then your girlfriend. I mean, these topics come everywhere. It's not like you're Jeff Foxworthy just telling about being a redneck. It's like you have all these jokes that you do. That's just everyday life. I mean, I've gone bowling with friends. I have traveled to Ireland. I have a day job. I've bartended. I've been drunk. I've driven drunk. Everything. That's just what everyday life is, and that's stuff that we all do, or most of us do, rather, just going through day to day. But it's just when something happens, I focus on something and it stands out to me as something that can be funny, and that's just how I'm wired.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it's a vacation or a day at work or at a dog park. Something happens that is my daily life, and that's just how I process.
Now, let's talk about that process. Let's say you see something that annoys you, and it's like, okay, this annoys me. Walk me through the physical act of what you do to see if this is going to turn into a bit. Do you pull out a notebook or a phone, or do you keep it in your head? Talk me through the physical part of this.
All right, so something will happen, and I will ruminate on this person or situation. I'll be like, he or she is annoying or rude or whatever, and I'll huff and puff, and I'll be like, what the fuck is their problem? Like, come on, that's not how you behave. That's not how you treat people. That's not right. And then a few minutes later, I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny. So there's always a window between annoyance and acceptance. And then that's when I'll either pull my notebook out or write a voice memo in my phone, or or I'll jot it down somehow, a voice memo, or write it down. But there's always the situation, me being irritated, and then a few minutes later, the realization, oh, that could work on stage.
Now, let's talk about this.
It's all the time.
Let's talk about this idea book. Do you always carry like a pocket notebook in your pocket, or is like what is it that you do to make sure you capture this idea? Or is it now turning more, now that it's 2021, are you more just putting it into your phone now at this point versus writing it out?
A lot of stuff goes in the phone, but it will go from the phone to the notebook.
Okay.
I don't always have a notebook on my person, but I have a notebook in my one bag, which I carry with me all the time.
Okay, cool.
That's always been my thing.
Now, inside, the way that these jokes are constructed is there is a title and then there is a bullet point list of sentences. You don't write out jokes verbatim or how you're going to talk about it. It's like,
no, I do.
Oh, okay.
I definitely do, but I sent you bullet points. Like, I'll just ramble for pages and pages.
Okay.
But I'll write for pages and pages, but then when I have to think about how am I going to do this on stage, that's where the bullet points comes in. Obviously, bullet points, it's more of a concise version of what I had just written out. So
let's talk about the bowling joke then. All right, and so I'm assuming you were in a bowling alley, and you have different punchlines that come in there, the dirtiness of the ball, the trivia fact, you felt like, what was the first thing that indicated to you at the bowling alley that this is going to go into your phone? Like, this is something that annoyed you or didn't, what about that was the first indication?
Trying to find the right bowling ball and sticking my fingers in several different kinds to find one I liked.
Okay, and so when you're doing this, you're actually taking your phone out, you're putting the ball and you're putting your phone, this might be something.
No, I kept that up here.
Okay.
Stuff goes in the phone, but it doesn't always have to go in the phone that second, because to me, there's stuff that stands out to me that I'll remember, and there's stuff I won't, and I kind of know myself now to what goes into which camp. So I guess I was having a high alert comedy day, and even though I'm bowling with my friends, I was like, oh, I'm not going to forget this, and I did it. I remember everything about that day. So I knew I had something good in the works, so I retained everything. I didn't have to put anything in my phone.
Okay.
For that joke.
Okay, for that joke. So maybe and you, I think you had mentioned this before in an interview. You had said sometimes the best jokes come out of nowhere and they work the first time, and boom, you go with it. I'm assuming that was like the bowling joke. There was, how did you work out the bowling joke? Like, tell me from the fact that it was ruminating in your head to getting it to stage. What was that middle part like for you?
Just putting it all together.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm asking you about me. Do you remember what podcast I said that on?
No, this was an article, I think, with Helium. I think it was a written article with Helium WordPress or something like that.
Because I remember talking about that.
It might have been a while ago, that article.
No, it was, because that was in reference to my reduced child abuse death joke.
Oh, okay.
Where I knew that was going to work. I stumbled upon, and that's, as confident as comics, we're insecure, but we also have confidence.
Yeah.
And when I saw that thing that said reduce child abuse death,
Yeah.
and I said not eliminate, it was my light bulb, and I was like, oh, that's going to work.
Yeah.
And that I opened with it right away, and it fucking murdered as the opener.
Yeah.
Opening joke.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, so I guess like kind of walk me through. Then you can use the bowling joke if you want to. Or you can use any of your jokes. Like talk me about the bullet points. Talk me about when it gets to the verbatim part. Kind of walk me through you writing out a joke from the idea stage to the first time you tell it on stage, either at an open mic or a guest set or hosting. Kind of walk me that middle part kind of deal.
I write as much as I can about it. I get lost. I, write and write and write and write and write. And then I go back and look at it and I pick out the funniest points. And that's what I make bullet points of.
Okay.
And then I don't always go back and rewrite the bullet points, but only when I have the bullet points, I'll say them out loud. And once I do it a couple times, I'll get the structure. And then it's time to take it to the stage. And then that's where the joke really takes its life. You know what I mean? I mean, because you can, I've said this a million times, you can say your jokes alone at home or in your hotel room, but that doesn't mean anything compared to when you take them on stage.
Yeah.
Like the stage, the crowd is the real deal. So you can nail this bit in your hotel room 10 times in one day and then fuck it up the instant you get on stage that night.
Okay.
So the stage is where you played with it, you know what I mean? And that's also where you get your reaction. So the crowd kind of lets you know what part of the joke is funny.
Yeah, so when you say you write it out, you're just writing, you're writing. Almost, Jake Matera talks about this. He calls like the stream of consciousness, whatever. Jake Matera. He just writes.
No, I'm kidding.
I didn't know, but sometimes that's really bad enunciating, so I thought maybe I was like, but so like, if you're like your first iteration of what this joke is it more like a journal entry? If I look at the bowling joke, is it like, are you just rewriting the facts of that day kind of thing? Like almost like you're writing a diary and then you go back and look at it and see where the funny parts are?
Yeah, I guess it's more of free writing.
Okay.
Every joke has, I just write and write and write, and then I just backtrack a little bit to have a more concise rewrite.
Are you writing and writing and writing just and trying to be funny, or just writing out everything you can about that day, everything you think is absurd about bowling? Maybe you're online looking up stuff about bowling or looking at a bowling ball and Google Images. Like, are you meaning to be funny that first time, or are you just writing as much as you can and then you're going to be funny later?
Up until very recently, I used to try to make everything I wrote funny, and I really had to stop myself because I would beat myself up going, this isn't funny, this isn't funny, this is not funny. So now I am trying to give myself permission to not be funny and just write. And Christopher Titus, amazing comic, had a great line where he said, as comics, we need to give ourselves permission to write, and it's not funny. Because not everything we write is going to be funny. So you have to give yourself permission to write shit. Okay. So I didn't start doing that until the past couple weeks, couple months.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I was beating myself up for a long time, writing and just saying this isn't funny over and over again. But it's like, I know I'm a comic trying to write funny stuff, but not every single thing is going to be funny. So if you allow yourself the freedom to write unfunny stuff, you'll write and write and write, and then your writing will get better. But it took me 15 years to get that lesson.
Okay. So, I know you said you kind of adopted this new way of not being funny right off the bat kind of thing. Have you found benefits in doing that, or do you think are you still unsure that this is how you're going to continue writing jokes and maybe you go back to being funny the first time?
I'm unsure because I haven't really done that many gigs yet.
Yeah, okay.
So once I get in the groove of live shows and writing more with writing not being funny, like I'll probably have a better idea in a year or so once things,
hopefully, yeah.
Once I have enough more writing with this freedom and more shows, I'll be able to tell.
Okay.
Later on.
Now, so how long would you say in this new way of writing? How long are you writing like one bit maybe now? Like this first time where you're just writing just to get the words on the page. are we talking several pages now because you're trying to write as long as you can? Or is it still relatively short? You're keeping it short to maybe like one or two topic, like two things that you want to talk about, and just keeping it to
all over the place. It depends on
Okay.
what the topic is or what I can pull out of it.
Okay.
You know, some things in my latest notebook are pages. Other things are a paragraph. Some
Okay.
are 2 paragraphs because I really feel like I don't have any more to say on the topic at the time.
Okay.
But then I'll leave space beneath it in the notebook, or write like an asterisk and like write like continued in 3 more pages, like
Okay.
like stuff like that.
And now, so then tell me about the process then of reading back what you wrote and then getting that into the bullet points. Are the bullet points the punchlines? Is that what I'm looking at? Or are they just like concepts that you think are brilliant and different and may not be funny, but like the audience, this will be a aha moment for the audience, or is it a punchline?
They're a mix of setup and punchlines.
Okay.
It'll be like it'll be 2 words that aren't funny, and then the punchline being like old woman, cashier. Let's say old woman. I have to talk about her to the setup, but the cashier is the punchline. So I know by saying old woman, I know I'm going to end up at punchline.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sorry, at cashier, which is the punchline.
Okay.
So like it's a little bit of both, and they constantly change. Like if I could write my bowling notes, but I could write them again a month later, and like a little bit's changed, but it's still kind of the same joke. I just use different words to get there.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. And so when you're starting to write out the bullet points, and are you just going through what you just wrote and seeing? Are you just trying to look for anything that can be funny, or
Anything that I think is going to just make the joke complete. You know?
Okay.
Not every single line has to be killer. There are a lot of decent jokes in my set that aren't the big hits that, you know,
Yeah.
but they carry the joke along the way, and they're just as important as the big closer because they're the jokes that get you to that point.
So when we're talking about this bowling joke, and the one line I love that's in there is talking about the people that work in a bowling alley, and you call them indoor carnies, which is awesome.
Thank you.
How long did it take you from when you wrote that first just writing out process of just your experience bowling? Did you get to indoor carnies? Was that pretty new, or did you borrow that from another joke?
If I can remember correctly, indoor carnies came out in the moment on stage one night. I think that just came in a moment where the bit was going really well and I was riffing. That was not written ahead of time.
So do you make a point to riff on stage to kind of get like gems like indoor carnies, or because it's usually written out word for word before you get on stage, are you so focused on making sure that it's coming out the way it was written, and riffing is now just something that accidentally happens instead of being a conscious thing?
Kind of more accidentally. I don't riff that often. Like I don't go off on tangents or really stray too far from what I want to do. But every now and then, if the crowd is killer and everybody's in a good mood, and you find yourself in a position where you trust yourself a little more, that's where like genius strikes sometimes. I'm not saying my line is genius, but
pretty
good. There's really some cool stuff that comes in the moment when everything's aligned perfectly. The crowd is in a good mood. You're in a good mood. You're loose. You trust yourself. You're like, this crowd loves this bit. I can try something or something. There's a phenomenon that happens too where you're just talking and something literally lightning bolts into your head and you say it and it murders. And I think that was one of those instances for me.
Do you constantly try to shorten your jokes as much as possible? Let's say
I do.
Okay.
I believe in cutting out the fat and
what constitutes fat? Is it anything that doesn't get like an applause break, or is it if people are
Fat is anything that stops you from getting to the punchline quicker.
Okay.
Like fat would be like, I was talking to my mom and she was telling me she was at the store last Tuesday. Okay, well that has nothing to do with the whole entire joke.
Okay.
Just say, my mom told me a story.
Okay.
Like shit like that.
How do you do that?
And then you get better at that over time.
How do you do that? How do you know what's unnecessary word? I mean, I know you've been doing comedy for 15 years, but you have a new bit and you're excited about it. You have this great bit about coronavirus and you're like, can't wait to get on stage. How do you stop yourself from speeding through something and stop yourself? Okay, Pat, look at this. What can I cut?
Well, that's where the long form writing to the bullet points come from.
Okay.
Essentially, that the bullet points become essentially rewriting in itself. And what I used to do, I've done this in years, I would type up my jokes, print them out, and then go with a Sharpie and just been like, don't need that. I don't need that. Don't need that. And be like, oh my God, that's 3 whole sentences I chopped out.
Okay.
So I love just short and to the point. And yeah, fat is just anything that stops you from getting to the punchline quicker.
I like that.
But again, that takes time. There's been many. If I were to listen to my first album now, I'd probably find stuff that's too wordy for my liking. But I didn't know any better, and I got better afterwards. But I mean, I've seen, and again, I'm guilty of this, where just comics are talking, and they're setting up the story with just so much unnecessary information.
I mean, is this so? Yeah, I know, and I am very guilty.
But that's natural.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody has done it. Everybody's guilty because you don't know yet, and you have to learn how to get the joke to the most concise way that you can.
So let's talk then about. So it seems like your jokes go from just kind of recapping a little bit. We talked about the idea circulates in your head. You're kind of digesting it in real time, and it kind of sits there in your head sometimes. It may go in your phone sometimes, but anyways, at some point, you either sit down or you somewhere. You then kind of go from this thing where you just write on an idea, bullet point, and then you write it out again based on those bullet points. What even gets selected in your world to go? I mean, this is a very rigorous process. Even the fact that maybe at some point in your career you are printing out jokes, even just to cut out words. There's a lot of work that goes into these bits, more so than I think people. I mean, more so than I realize. How do you discern if you maybe have 10 ideas? What is worthy of spending hours of your time going from this format to this and kind of whittling it down, kind of like it's plinkoing down this rabbit hole of work ethic and your time? Do you separate out jokes anyway, or does every joke get the same treatment until you cut it off at a certain point?
I mean, all of them deserve a chance.
Okay.
If I'm working on a handful of bits, I want to make sure I try them all. And then sometimes natural selection tells you, like, all right, this one has never really worked. Mm-hmm. You think it's funny, but it hasn't worked in the 5 times you tried it, so it's time to let that one go. Mm-hmm. Just because you let it go doesn't mean you can't put it on the back burner and bring it back. There have been a handful of jokes in my career I've shelved for a couple of years and then brought them back when I saw them with fresh eyes. Mm-hmm. But typically, I think for me, deep down, I know which ones I want to work on, the ones that are most exciting to me. Like if I had like a set list, it's like, okay, I'm working on bowling, hotel sex, and this Applebee's thing. Mm-hmm. These 3 are the most exciting and funny to me right now. So those get preference. And other stuff I think is funny, I'll still work on. Mm-hmm. But I had this, I don't know, I feel like every comic has their own intuition where it's like, oh, I'm really excited about this one, so this one or these 2 or 3 are going to get my full attention right now.
Okay. Now, if you are writing something out, let's say like you're 3 and 4 sentences in and you like it, you think it's gold, and then you're like, I have nothing else to contribute to this. Do you force yourself to keep writing more and make it longer, or you're like, or are you okay settling for a 3-sentence joke which might take 15 seconds telling it on maybe like a one-liner, just have a punch and then move on somewhere else?
Yeah, a 3-sentence joke that I like a lot, I will try to find somewhere to put it. Okay. Like sometimes those little smaller loner things can be put somewhere else. Okay. As an attachment something or so. Typically, sometimes a little aside, you can open up a joke and be like, hey, so I was bowling last week. Yeah. Before I went bowling, I ABC. You do the quick joke, they laugh, you bring it back to bowling. Like some of the smaller things can usually find little spots to fill. Okay. Or little like places to go.
Now, when you take the joke from the bullet point stage and you're writing it out now again, what kind of goes into your head? You have 4 bullet points on this paper. how do you rate that out? Like, how do you know without being too wordy? Like, do you make sure like each four has just like a separate punchline, or do you then kind of like chart out? Okay, I have these 4 points I want to make. Let me now analyze these 4 points further and start charting out. So, like, do you now like expand off those points, or do you just take those 4 bullet points and just try to write them out into maybe 4 or 8 sentences that are longhand now?
Yeah, it's like the bullet points. I kind of know what I'm already saying in my mind at that point. And
Okay.
so they're just little reminders for me to glance at. But once they're bullet points, I kind of already know where it is up here. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
So the bullet points are more just like doing a PowerPoint presentation. Like if you were like, okay, there's this. I know what I'm saying for these. Here's this one. I know what I'm saying here.
Okay.
I've never been asked these kind of in-depth questions before, and it's kind of fun. It's making me think. Like sometimes you think that like there's more to the joke. You know, maybe there's more to the joke to it than I realize. And other times I was like, I don't know, I was just drunk at a Holiday Inn. I thought it was funny. I had no idea. Like,
I mean, it's mostly just me being jealous of how you can come up with this material. It's mostly what this is.
no, man, that's just everyday life and how my brain processes fucking.
Good for you, man. God bless you, dude. All right, so all right, so now you have this joke, and you're good with it from your standpoint, and you want to get it on stage. Do you check and balance yourself off of social media, maybe with it, or maybe another comic, possibly? Like, do you do any kind of checking it before it hits the stage, either social media or another comic, or is it the first time an audience hears it? Is the first time that anyone has heard it?
Very rarely. I have done that in the past, but a lot of times in recent years, my material's gotten so personal to me, I really don't feel like that's a problem because I'm telling my story and something I observe.
Okay.
Granted, there is parallel thinking, and other people have been in the same awkward situations and whatnot, but it's not to say that, people can't have the same coincidence or story or take on something, but lately, past couple of years, my stuff's been so personal that I'm really not too worried about that.
Okay. Because what's funny is when I've talked to comics, either from the first season or from this current one, a lot of times they'll be, oh yeah, and your name will get brought up a lot. For people that someone will bounce off a joke off of you to see what your thoughts are. Your name gets brought up probably the most often of any comedian I've heard.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
So you tell the joke on stage then. Tell me about then, do you record every set? And then if you do, like, how do you edit? Like, how do you then edit the joke based on the audience?
I record every single set, every single night. And I have been doing that for a long, actually for, my God, at least 13 or 14 years because before iPhones had the voice memos, you could buy that little attachment that went into the charging spot, the little port. So I had a couple of those to record my set.
Yeah.
So I've been recording every set for years, way before my first album. And I don't always go back and listen to them. I mean, I go back and listen if there's something brand new or something I'm working on. But also in the off chance you say something off the cuff, like I said, with the what did I mention earlier that was off the cuff? Oh, indoor cornings.
Yeah.
Or if you just say something differently, you're like, oh, I liked how I said that. That came out differently and it got a better reaction. So it comes in handy for that, but it's not like I'm listening to every single set all the way through. You would drive yourself mad, and that's a waste of time.
Okay.
So, like, when I come off stage from a show and I know I'm going to listen to my set first thing in the morning, I pretty much am already aware. I already take the mental notes of exactly what I have to listen to. Okay, listen to this bit, listen to that bit, and you said something weird over here, just go check that out. But I'm not listening to, like...
And you do that all in your head. You don't get off the stage or go right to the green room and be like, okay, here's my set list, and you start circling the ones that you want to re-listen to. You can...
No, I'm pretty cognizant. I'm pretty good at keeping it upstairs.
So let me ask you, what are you listening to as far as, like, okay, so you have a new joke, all right, let's say bowling or whatever. What is it that you're listening to? Like, how long do you give a punchline that you're passionate about that's maybe not hitting until you drop it? Or do you keep rephrasing and just keep like, hey, I really want to make this point about this dude who invented the automatic ball return, and like it didn't hit the first time, and maybe then you like you know, I don't, something like that where you're like, or do you drop it after a certain number of times, kind of deal?
No, I don't. I've never had a number system like that.
Okay.
Some stuff still doesn't do. I mean, not many things. I have a handful of things that I think are very funny that don't always do that well, that I keep for me because I want them in there. I think it's funny, and I don't care if they like it.
I like you do have a very confident delivery. Like when I see you on stage, and you're this really nice guy, and you are very giving and all this, but on stage, if I didn't know you, I'd be like, this dude's somewhat cocky. That would be like my. You have a stage presence that exuberates confidence, and it's admirable because I have a very opposite one where I'm not. But it's like you won the audience. You already won like the battle already because the audience is already bought in. Like that you believe in these jokes. You're confident about these jokes. Like, do you have? Are you cognizant about your delivery, or like? Do you do certain things on stage? Like, I'm gonna make sure I stand right at as far in front as I can, or like
I like to hang back against the wall more. I'm a big leaner.
Okay.
I like leaning on the wall.
Okay.
But to go back to what you just said, am I cognizant of my delivery?
Yeah.
Absolutely, because I am, and this has been exuded several times in this chat here. I can be mush mouth. And I have a tendency to speak quickly, and my words will jumble.
Okay.
So on stage, I am very, very cognizant of speaking clearly, so my words don't jumble.
Okay.
And sometimes I have to alter my word usage because if I say ABC, my words will jumble, so I go like ACE because that rolls off my tongue easier.
Okay.
So I might have to go around my original thought so I don't fuck it up live.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I would speak very quickly, and my words, I didn't stutter, but like I would speak so quickly, my words would just jumble, and I still do that a little as an adult. So my speaking is very deliberate, and it's kind of funny. I'm just used to doing my set the way I always do it and have done it.
Yeah.
But every now and then somebody will compliment my enunciation. And so I just fucked that word up, enunciation. Someone will compliment my enunciation, and it's so cool that people notice my deliberate wording.
Yeah.
It's rare, but it's happened on several occasions.
Okay. I mean, it comes
it's
off
very,
crisp
very,
to me,
it's a weird thing to point out, but it's happened.
But so I guess what do you do then with a punchline that you have? You know, your joke's gone through this very elaborate process of being written out, bullet points, back to writing it out again. Possibly there's more that you're doing, printing it out and crossing out words that are unnecessary. If a punchline is just not hitting, what is it that how do you resuscitate it, or do you just DOA it and cut it kind of thing, or what do you do about punchlines that just don't work in a joke, like where four punchlines work, the fifth one doesn't? What do you do about maybe something like that?
Get rid of that punchline that's not working and rearrange the joke somehow.
Okay.
Or make it a smaller joke and, like I said, put it somewhere else. You know, like make it fit into a different spot.
Was there anything about this bowling joke, like the felt like a lady, or the indoor carnies, or the World War II thing, or just how dirty the ball was? Was there anything that did not hit, early on this joke that you really had to work with to get it where it needs to be now, or where it is now?
No, that was one of the few bits that was pretty strong out the gate.
Okay.
I was very happy with it, and I probably exuded a lot of confidence in it because I did think it was funny, and I still think a lot of the punchlines in that joke are very strong. That was one of the ones that was pretty solid out the gate with very little tinkering.
Okay, so and then how do you build out your set list? So I saw the photo you said, the set list, and I was trying to look at it. I was like, he has he puts bullet points for a set list too, then he'll put lines in certain spots. Like, how are you blocking your set list? Like, there's obviously a method to your madness with it.
What I sent you was sometimes it's by section, these are the opening jokes.
Okay.
Then I'm going to go into the travel jokes, especially if I'm in a different city.
Okay.
Doing a couple travel jokes off the top kind of works. I just flew in yesterday.
Yeah.
And then you can tell a travel joke from 3 years ago, but they don't fucking know.
Yeah.
So, but since you flew in from out of town or drove in from out of town, and you mentioned traveling, it's a really smooth way to ease into your set.
Okay.
And then I have the chunk of new stuff I'm working on.
Okay.
And then I have the chunk of really solid jokes that I know work well that are going to make the set hit harder.
Mm-hmm.
Then I always like to say big hand for the wait staff, even though it's kind of lame.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's like 80% through my set. I start doing my bartending jokes,
Mm-hmm.
and the next section is like the closing stuff.
Okay.
So to me, there are sections, and the sections may vary, but they still kind of remain the same across the board, if that makes sense.
It does. And so when your set list, when you put your set list together, then do you? I'm trying to like think back. It's like, is it always changing, and you need to be referencing it during the show, or is it almost like a safety blanket and you just like, do you have it even out at that time, or do you leave it in the green room?
No. It's a safety blanket, and I'm pretty good at memorizing my set list because normally I know pretty much exactly what I'm doing over the course of the weekend.
Okay.
So even though I have the set list written down, I may look at it a couple times throughout my day. But when I go on stage, like, I'm pretty good at retaining all the information up here.
Okay.
And
wow.
Honestly, sometimes this is going to sound crazy in a way, but sometimes the longer the set, the more prepared I am, because if I'm working on new stuff, I might forget something, or I might forget something in another newer joke or whatever. But if I'm like headlining like an album recording, I can do an hour and I don't even need a notebook because I know exactly what's in what order. It's very bizarre.
Okay.
So I'm crazy, but sometimes the longer the set, the less I don't need a set list.
Okay, that is good. Okay, good for you. And so, how do you know when a joke is done? Like, obviously, jokes that hit your album, they're done. How do you know when the joke when a joke makes an SO? Like, it's almost like if you think about like all these jokes that you write are running through this obstacle course where they're constantly getting eliminated. It's like this kind of like this like elimination survivor style joke thing, and you get the best 18 jokes. How do you know that those 18 jokes are done? There's nothing more you can do with them, and they're going on the album.
You don't. I mean, Gary Gulman, who's one of my favorite comics and people on the planet, I fucking love Gary. Gary said, unless the crowd is saying the joke along with you, it's not done.
Okay.
And I mean,
are you revisiting old jokes and seeing if you can do more with them? Like the Scranton bit with the child abuse joke?
I don't visit old jokes to do more with them. I visit old jokes to have fun for me sometimes.
Okay.
Like in the past couple of years, I've done 2 or 3 things from my first album that I thought were funny and brought them back just to have fun and do something different. Like I'm working on this same set for a year and I'm bored and I go to like this, let's say I'm headlining a bar show just doing 15 minutes. Well, I'll do 15 minutes for my first album, and odds are nobody in the crowd has heard anything of it. But it's fun for me to just go back and kind of dick around with.
Okay. All right. Nice, man. So let's talk about these albums. So your first album, Biggest Thing in 2013, that's the one that when I first tried to introduce myself to Philadelphia comedy, that was the first album I listened to, and then Chips was the second one. And then I was actually at your I Heard Enough Yesterday album recording a couple of years ago. Yeah. What is the significance of it? Now, you have a third album coming out. I don't know how much you're willing to talk about it or anything, but like, what is the significance of doing an album to you? When do you know this is the right time to do an album?
When I have about an hour of stuff that I like, when I have an hour of stuff that I like. I had did my first album in 2013. 5 years later, I did the second one, and now it's on less than 3 years after, and I'm ready to do number 3. So like my writing's getting better. I like this material the most, and I'm writing more. So I feel like, in my mind, not that it's a natural progression per se, but I just feel like my writing's getting better all the time. And since I'm writing more, I'm just churning out more stuff, you know?
Do these albums coincide with some kind of like life milestone, or are you treating this like as like a grad student treats like their doctorate? Like, like this is I'm turning this is my final project kind of thing. And then I want to make sure that the next time I do something that's better than this. Are there any kind of like, are you cautious on like making sure that this album defined this time in my life and this album defined this time in my life?
No, it's just where I am going. It's just where I am going through life, and like I'm personal on stage, but nothing too personal. Like I'm not talking about like being a parent right now or anything like that. It's just the stuff that's happened to me in the past 2 or 3 years that I find funny, and I'm going to put it out there and then work on the next chunk of life and the next chunk of material.
Oh, cool, man. Now, with this third album, was it already recorded? The rumor is it's been recorded.
Well, yeah, but I can't use the audio, so...
Why? The person screwed it up or something, or?
No. My sound guy's great. It was recorded in a big room with a small crowd, and the shows were great, but it would just require so much tech work that I wouldn't want my producer to have to do 40 hours of tinkering. Whereas, like, I'm going to record the album again in the spring. It's going to be a whole lot easier and significantly easier. So it's better for everybody. And then when I thought I recorded my album back in December, I was a little bit rusty, and I have some dates before I record the next one again. So, like, I should be a little more in the groove to, so... Yeah, 2020 was just its own separate beast.
Yes. Now, are you making the pandemic part of your new album, or are you gonna be like
for 2 or 3 minutes off the top? I mean, I'm not gonna dwell on it too much. It sucks for everybody. I wrote 1 million jokes in Facebook statuses during the pandemic, and I think I whittled it down to like 5 or 6 jokes I really like, and then 2 or 3 of those I really like doing on stage. So I know exactly. Which it's only going to be like 3 or 4 minutes tops of pandemic stuff, but I'll probably open the album with that stuff.
Nice. Okay. And then I wanted to ask about, you sent me these things, these reminders that you put in for yourself about.
Oh yeah, I do that pretty frequently.
What is that? Give me the origin story behind this checklist of reminders, because I was cracking up. I was like, is he serious about this, or is he doing this just to humor me? I couldn't tell.
No, that's real. You forget to do new stuff, or you are having. Sometimes I either forget to do new stuff, or I'm having so much fun doing what works that I want to crush, and I just stick to what works. So I write myself reminders to do new material, and sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't, but I write reminders to myself all the time to try new stuff. I've gotten better over the years.
Do you bring that on stage with you? So that
No. But I look at it. I try to look at it before I go on.
Okay. I loved it. And then you said the last thing you sent me was this image, and it was it was just a half a page, and it had a date on there. And obviously this was something that happened in Ireland, and it almost read a journal entry, and I didn't know. I was wondering, like, is Pat trying to tell me that he keeps a journal and then will visit, kind of see if, like, maybe if he's lacking, if he's like looking for material, go back on these days and try to remind himself of stuff that happens. Like, what was the point? There didn't seem to be a joke.
No, it's always probably Catholic school. We had to write our date at the top of the page every day. I guess that stuck with me. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I just do it.
But do you write like kind of what happens to you every day? Do you keep a journal or anything like that about what's going on in your life currently and stuff that you've done from that day?
Yes and no. It's not like I sit down and like write about my feelings or like, oh my God, today A, B, and C happened.
Yeah.
I write down the points of what I thought were interesting of the day. It's not like a journal entry where I'm like pouring my heart and soul onto the page about something. It's like what stuck out to me today. And sometimes emotions come into it. Like I was really angry because or whatever, but it's not like it's an intentional journal. It's just I write down the thoughts and memories that I guess could be material or could be, something down the line. Not writing feelings to write feelings, writing feelings for future work.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, thank you. Thanks for going through your whole rigmarole with me. It is interesting. Good. It's a goal. It doesn't have to be the ultimate goal, but like saying like, hey, this was worth not getting a 9-to-5 job. This was worth, going through all like the crap shows and the bad weather and coming back at 3 a.m. Like, what is it in your life that will make all this worth it? Or has that already happened?
I mean, I feel like it's a win just doing just getting paid to do comedy often, but I mean, it would be nice to be like a regular known headliner, not even famous. I'm not looking for fame. It would be nice to be a headliner to travel the country and world and have people come see me because they want to come see me, not just because I'm the random name on the marquee that night.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be nice to have a fan base that came out all over.
Yeah. So what
much it.
And I apologize, this is like a tough question or maybe an insensitive question, but like, what is it where you are the opener for these huge names and huge venues, but like, what is it that's keeping you from making that leap to getting those kind of like jobs? Like what, I mean, I don't want to sit here and blemish any of the names you said, but there are some of those comics that I think you are funnier than. What is it that's keeping you from maintaining this huge is it that you don't have an agent? Is it that you're not in New York City? Is it, I mean, what is it that's about it?
That's what I've been told. It's because I'm not in New York City. It's because I'm not in LA. Whether that's true or not is, I don't know. But no, I don't have any management on event representation. I don't even have a big social media following. I have a very small social media following. But for whatever reason, I get a lot of work on the road. A lot of clubs like me. So I'm working and I'm grinding, which makes me happy, but it's just not like, on a larger scale.
Okay.
Like I don't even think I have 2,000 Instagram or Twitter followers. You know what I mean? And I've seen comics. I'm not like shit talking anybody here, but like I have no social media following. But I've seen so many comics who I think are not funny, who are not working, who have like 12,000. I'm like, Jesus, even that would probably fucking boost my podcast numbers. Like, whatever, man.
But like,
whatever.
I mean, some of these shows,
I'm having fun doing live shows. That's all.
Well, that's good, man, and that's really what matters. But do you ever ask Sebastian, can you get me in front of like maybe an agent or something like that, or somebody? I'm looking to get bigger than I am.
No, but oddly enough, Sebastian's managers would tour with him, so I know them very well.
Yeah.
And then they are the reason why I got into the Borgata Comedy Club. So like, I've gotten, may not be fame or national notoriety, but I've gotten some cool shit off to the side because of Sebastian, Dan, and Tom. So like, it might not be the limelight, but like, I've gotten gigs that have paid well. Like, other cool shit has fallen to the wayside,
Okay. Yeah, okay. You said you were trying to take a more personal approach with your stand-up now versus what it was, let's say, back in 2013 when your first album dropped. Are you trying to open up more on stage with kind of like people walk away with a better understanding of who you are? Or is the personal stuff you're talking about just situations that you're in that now direct, instead of you observing a situation, now you're in the situation? Which one is it?
Well, anything that's just personal to me. It could be something I observe or like my feelings or emotions. Just anything that's personal to me.
Okay.
Like, it can be a mixture of anything as long as it's just something. Like, I'm not going to tell my college roommate Jeff's life story. I'm going to tell mine. So it's like, it's anything that's personal to me. Funny, sad, indifferent, annoyed. Anything that just comes from my perspective.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay.
Anything that's just uniquely mine.
Okay. Cool, man. Well, dude, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. I'm hitting the stop button.
My name is Pat House.
All right, that's Pat House. I love sitting with Pat. I love anytime Pat and I can work together. He is just one of the best joke writers that are out there. Please go ahead, download all 3 of his albums, most importantly, the one that he just recorded, I'm Here, and check out his podcast, I'll Do It. Had a great time with Pat. Go ahead, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and I'll see you next time. I'm Marc Stoudemire. Take care.